Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we're all about, cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of the biggest cybersecurity stories of the day.
That's right. We're not just skimming the surface. We're really diving deep.
Exactly. And today, today's a doozy.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up.
We've got ransomware attacks gone wrong, AI vulnerabilities that could make your head spin.
And a whole lot more.
So let's dive right in with a case that's been sending shockwaves through the cybersecurity world.
Baco Technologies.
A German company specializing in compressed air technology.
They were hit by Black Basta ransomware back in December.
Now, what makes the story so interesting is that they absolutely refused to pay the ransom.
Which, a lot of experts would say is the right thing to do.
Right, don't give in to the criminals.
Exactly. But the question is, did it work?
Well, the attackers did what they said they would do and leaked a massive amount of data.
700 gigabytes, to be exact.
Wow, blueprints, personal information company, secrets, the whole 9 yards.
It's a stark reminder that refusing to pay doesn't guarantee your data is safe.
So what are companies supposed to do when they're faced with this impossible choice?
It's a tough question. You have to weigh the financial cost of the ransom against the potential reputational damage.
And the risk of further leaks.
Not to mention the moral implications of funding criminal activity.
It's a high-stakes game, and unfortunately, the stakes just keep getting higher.
And the attackers are getting more brazen.
Yeah, remember that huge hotel data breach that hit the news recently?
Turns out that was the work of a particularly nasty ransomware operation called Medusa.
Medusa, now that's a name that sends chills down your spine.
And for good reason. What's really interesting about them is that they use initial access brokers.
What does that even mean?
It means they don't actually do the hacking themselves. They buy access to already compromised networks from other criminals.
So they're like the middlemen of the ransomware world.
Exactly. They're basically outsourcing the dirty work and then swooping in to collect the ransom.
That's terrifying. So the company that gets hit with a ransom demand might not even know who stole their data in the first place.
It just adds another layer of complexity to an already convoluted situation.
It's like a tangled web of cybercrime out there.
It is. And it just goes to show that these aren't lone wolf hackers anymore. We're dealing with organized crime on a global scale.
And that makes them much harder to track down and bring to justice.
Absolutely. It's a whole new ballgame.
Speaking of new ballgames, we can't ignore the impact of artificial intelligence.
AI is revolutionizing everything.
From self-driving cars to personalized medicine.
And it's playing an increasingly important role in cybersecurity.
But is it the silver bullet we've all been hoping for?
Well, it's definitely a powerful tool, no doubt about that.
Security teams are using it to analyze mountains of data, detect threats, respond to incidents faster than ever before.
But it's important to remember that AI is still in its early stages of development.
It's not perfect.
And like any technology, it has its vulnerabilities.
Give me an example.
Well, recently, researchers discovered a flaw in the popular AI chatbot ChatGPT.
Wait, ChatGPT, the one everyone's using to write poems and code?
The one and only.
So what's the problem?
Well, it turns out that the way ChatGPT's API processes requests can be manipulated.
Manipulated how?
Attackers could potentially use it to launch DDoS attacks.
DDoS attacks, you mean those attacks that flood a website with traffic and knock it offline?
Exactly.
And that's not all. They could also potentially inject malicious code into ChatGPT's responses. So basically turn it into a weapon against unsuspecting users.
It's a wake-up call that even the most advanced AI systems have their weaknesses.
This is scary stuff. We're talking about AI that can be used for good.
Or for evil.
It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
But it's real, and it's something we need to be very aware of.
So what can we do about it?
Well, for starters, we need to make sure that AI systems are developed with security in mind from the ground up.
And we need to be constantly testing and monitoring them for vulnerabilities.
And we need to have a plan in place for what to do if an AI system is compromised.
This is a whole new frontier, and it's going to require a new way of thinking about security.
Absolutely. We can't just rely on the old methods. We need to be innovative and proactive.
And we need to be prepared for the unexpected.
Because in the world of cybersecurity, the only constant is change.
Well said. And that's something we'll be keeping a close eye on here at the Deep Dive.
You bet. We'll be right here to break down the latest developments and help you stay ahead of the curve.
Because in this game, knowledge is power.
And knowing is half the battle.
So stay tuned. We'll be back after the break with even more cybersecurity news you need to know.
It's a whole new world out there, and it's not getting any easier for the folks on the front lines of cybersecurity.
You're talking about burnout.
Oh, yeah, big time.
The ISA just released a report that's pretty alarming.
Nearly 65% of cybersecurity professionals say their jobs are getting harder, and a lot of them are thinking about quitting.
That's a huge problem. We're already facing a massive skills shortage.
And it's only going to get worse if we keep losing experienced people.
It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. And then you throw in new regulations like the EU's Digital Operational Resilience Act. Yeah, it came into effect last week, and it's causing a lot of headaches.
It's supposed to make companies more resilient to cyber attacks, but a lot of them just aren't ready.
They don't have the visibility into their own systems. They don't know where their data is stored or who has access to it.
It's like trying to secure a house when you don't even know how many doors and windows it has.
That's a great analogy, and that's why we're seeing such a mad dash for compliance.
Companies are realizing they need to get their act together and fast.
Yeah. But it's not just about checking boxes.
Right. It's about building a security culture that permeates the entire organization.
Everyone from the CEO to the intern needs to understand the importance of cybersecurity.
Speaking of vulnerabilities, let's talk about some of the recent ones that have been making headlines.
Halloween 2024 was a nightmare for a lot of companies.
Yeah, the DDoS attacks were off the charts.
One attack even hit a record-breaking 5.6 terabits per second.
That's insane. It's like a digital tsunami.
And then there was that nasty bug in 7-Zip.
The popular file compression software.
Yep, it allowed attackers to bypass the Mark of the Web security feature in Windows.
It's basically they could trick users into opening malicious files.
It's a classic social engineering technique.
And it just goes to show that even the most widely used software can have vulnerabilities.
It's a constant cat and mouse game.
On a slightly more positive note, the EU is launching a new action plan to strengthen cybersecurity in the healthcare sector.
Healthcare has become a prime target for ransomware attacks.
Hospitals are especially vulnerable because they hold so much sensitive patient data.
And they can't afford any downtime? Their systems need to be up and running 24/7.
The EU's action plan aims to improve prevention, boost incident response capabilities, and strengthen cooperation between member states.
It's a step in the right direction, but it remains to be seen if it'll be enough.
We'll be watching closely. All this news can feel overwhelming, especially if you're just starting to think about cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
So what advice would you give to organizations that are feeling lost and unsure where to begin?
Start with the basics. Strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, regular software updates.
And don't forget about employee training.
Absolutely. Humans are often the weakest link.
People need to be aware of the risks and how to avoid them.
Phishing scams, social engineering attacks, those are still some of the most common ways that attackers get in.
It's about building a culture of security where everyone's on the same page.
And everyone's accountable.
Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
It's not just an IT problem, it's a business problem.
And it needs to be treated that way.
With the same level of seriousness and attention as any other critical business function.
So let's talk about some of the things that organizations can do to improve their security posture.
Well, one of the most important things is to understand the value of your data.
What information is most critical to your business? Where is it stored? Who has access to it?
Once you have a clear understanding of your crown jewels, you can start to build a security strategy around protecting them.
It's about prioritizing your defenses.
Exactly. You can't protect everything, so you need to focus on the things that matter most.
And what about practical steps? Are there any simple things that organizations can do right now to improve their security?
Absolutely. Start with the basics I mentioned earlier, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, and regular software updates.
Those are all things that anyone can do.
And they can make a big difference. And don't underestimate the power of employee training.
Right. Educate your staff about the risks and how to avoid them.
Phishing scams, social engineering attacks, those are still some of the most common ways that attackers get in.
It's about building a culture of security where everyone's on the same page.
And everyone's accountable.
Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
It's not just an IT problem, it's a business problem.
And it needs to be treated that way.
With the same level of seriousness and attention as any other critical business function.
Now, let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the human element of cybersecurity.
Yes, the human factor.
We've talked about technical vulnerabilities. But what about the human vulnerabilities that attackers often exploit?
Social engineering, phishing scams, even simple carelessness can create openings for attackers.
And these attacks are getting more sophisticated all the time.
Attackers are using psychological manipulation, impersonation techniques, even artificial intelligence to craft more convincing and effective attacks.
It's like a digital version of con artistry.
Exactly. And the best defense against these types of attacks is education.
Teach employees how to recognize and avoid social engineering tactics.
Exactly. Make them aware of the common phishing techniques, the importance of verifying email senders, the risks of clicking on suspicious links.
It's about building a healthy dose of skepticism.
And encouraging employees to think twice before they click or share sensitive information.
Don't forget about the power of simulations and phishing exercises.
Oh, those are great. You can put employees in realistic scenarios and help them develop the skills and instincts they need to identify and avoid real attacks.
It's like a flight simulator for pilots.
Exactly. It allows them to practice handling emergencies in a safe environment before they have to face them in real life.
Speaking of staying ahead of the curve, threat intelligence plays a vital role in cybersecurity.
Absolutely. By understanding the latest attack techniques, malware trends, and vulnerable software organizations can proactively strengthen their defenses and reduce their risk of being compromised.
It's like a weather forecast for cyber attacks.
I like that. It helps you prepare for the storms that are brewing on the horizon.
But just like a weather forecast, threat intelligence isn't perfect.
It can't predict every attack.
But it can give you a valuable edge.
It's about making informed decisions, prioritizing resources, and focusing on the threats that are most likely to impact your organization.
So it's not just about prevention, it's also about resilience.
Exactly. Being able to detect attacks, quickly contain the damage, and recover your systems is just as important as stopping the initial breach.
It's like having a backup plan for your backup plan.
And that requires having a robust incident response plan, regularly testing it, and ensuring everyone on your team knows their role.
Communication is key during an attack.
Absolutely. You need to keep stakeholders informed, coordinate with external partners, and manage public perception.
And this is where strong leadership comes in.
A calm and decisive leader can make all the difference in guiding your organization through a cyber crisis.
Cybersecurity is no longer just a technical issue, it's a business issue.
And it requires strong leadership at all levels of the organization.
And a mindset shift.
We need to move away from the idea that cybersecurity is solely the responsibility of the IT department.
And embrace a culture of security where everyone understands their role in protecting the organization.
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility.
And it requires ongoing education and awareness training for all employees, from the CEO to the newest intern.
Everyone needs to understand the risks, the potential consequences of a breach, and the steps they can take to protect themselves and the organization.
They need to feel empowered to report suspicious activity and ask questions.
A strong security culture is built on trust and open communication.
And let's not forget about the importance of a layered security approach.
Ah, yes, defense in depth.
No single security solution is foolproof.
To effectively defend against today's sophisticated attacks, you need multiple layers of protection.
It's like a medieval castle with walls, moats, drawbridges, and guards.
Each layer provides a different type of protection, making it much harder for attackers to penetrate your defenses.
And if one layer fails, the other layers are there to catch the attack.
It's about creating a safety net for your organization.
And recognizing that security is a continuous journey.
The threat landscape is constantly evolving, so you need to be prepared to adapt, learn, and improve your security posture over time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And to succeed in this marathon, you need a combination of technical expertise, strategic thinking, and a strong understanding of the human element of cybersecurity.
And a healthy dose of paranoia.
Perhaps a little bit. But mostly it's about being proactive, informed, and prepared for the unexpected.
It's about building a culture of security that permeates every aspect of your organization.
And it's about never letting your guard down. You know, one thing that really got me thinking while we were getting ready for today's deep dive was this idea of a standardized cybersecurity classification system.
A classification system. Like for hurricanes.
Exactly. Like we have categories for hurricanes, earthquakes, even movies.
Right. PG-13R, NC-17.
It helps us understand the severity of something quickly.
So you're saying we should have something like that for cyber attacks?
Think about it. It would allow us to communicate more effectively about threats.
No more security jargon. Just a clear understanding of what happened and what it means.
Exactly. It would provide much-needed context, especially when you're talking to non-technical folks like executives or the general public.
So instead of just saying we had a data breach, you could say this was a level 5 data breach with a potential impact score of 8.5.
Precisely. Everyone would instantly know what level of damage we're dealing with.
It's like the Richter scale for cyber attacks.
That's the idea. And it would allow us to track trends over time, identify weak spots, and develop more effective security strategies.
We could say this year we've seen a significant increase in level 4 attacks targeting financial institutions.
And everyone would understand the implications immediately.
It's a brilliant concept. It really highlights the need for more clarity and consistency in how we talk about cybersecurity.
We're always trying to explain complex technical concepts to people who just want to know if their data is safe.
A standardized classification system could bridge that gap.
It could foster better communication and collaboration between security professionals, business leaders, and policymakers.
It could be a real game changer. For me, it's a perfect example of what makes the deep dive so valuable.
We're not just reporting the headlines, we're digging deeper.
We're exploring the so what behind the news.
We're connecting the dots, helping our listeners understand the bigger picture, and empowering them to make informed decisions about their own security.
Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power.
The more you understand about the threats, the better equipped you are to defend against them.
So stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay informed.
And never stop learning.
Until next time on the deep dive, stay safe out there.